Everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to another recording of Magic the Gathering Arena. Today is Friday, June 19th. We're starting late again. This is going to be a late night draft. Let's see, what do we want to get rid of? Blue or black? Let's get rid of white and blue as an option. So now we need to probably play red and then black. These Friday Night Magic historic brawls, I guess, give us cards, so we should do that. I went to the store yesterday and I literally had purchased everything, which is to say I already had been gifted or earned all those skins somehow, which is a first, certainly, and it's a little weird that you would have so many skins just pop up, cosmetics, and there would just not be a way for the system to say, well, let's give something to him that he doesn't have. But I imagine if you just did have all the skins, since there's so many different ways to get them, people will eventually just have no reason to go to the daily deals except for to get an occasional pack and or an occasional avatar, which we're slowly lowering that number every time there's a sale. Or an occasional sleeve, I guess, if you really are starting to run out of that. If all of these sleeves actually disappear, the number of sleeves left will be fairly small. And I did get a Theros Beyond Death pack for cheap, so might as well. Like, that is the name of the game as this goes, is that you're just buying packs to see if maybe you can get a copy or a wild card. How many of those really were new for Theros Beyond Death? Just one final copy of this card. And at a certain point, I guess I should look to see where we where we are. You can tell I pretty much just woke up. Yeah, there's still a decent number of cards that I don't have 4 copies of for Theros Beyond Death, but I'm not sure I really even need that. And then, let's see, we'll get our 15 wins, or at least 10 wins, and then that'll be that. So, let's play this, let's do this. We've got a black brawl deck that I don't want to build a new brawl deck. So let's just hop in here and play along. So for the accountability section, I was still working on my automation. I would call it a macro, but it's really not a macro. It has some logic, although you do have to stupidly drop down to executing JavaScript to do any of the logic, and the wrapper software really doesn't have much flow control or logic in it. Mostly hindered by the fact that there's just no way to put 2 values into 2 things at on the same line, which is really ridiculous. So mostly I finished it. The automation software uses something called UI.vision, which used to be called Cantu, I believe. It's several different softwares and IDEs built on top of each other, and it's to automate the upload process with the new YouTube Studio upload process, so that it will take me considerably less time, hopefully, to upload videos. That being said, I still need to schedule the videos that have been uploaded, and there's quite a few of those. So I'm avoided doing one thing by doing another thing, and I'll need to basically play the entirety of a game in most instances. before I can even run the macro for it to be very useful. It's not going to be very useful if there's only 1 or 2 videos, and it needs to go up to 15, 16 videos, which I thought they said you could only upload 15 videos. It seems like, at least the way I was doing it, you could upload more than 15 videos. And since to put the in-screen function enabled, which I haven't, like, I literally was one of the persons that suggested the in-screens, and I've stopped using them because it's just such a hassle to apply it. Instead of just saying, hey, this is the default in-screen that all videos should have, they have to process the whole video, and before you can even start to apply it, it's just not convenient. And that's inherently the problem with YouTube on the back end, and probably some of the problem of YouTube on the front end also, is that it is just never convenient as a service, and it's just a hassle to use. So, like, best case scenario I can do is I could try to make an automation software that would go back to older videos and apply it, but even that won't really work, because not for all of them. YouTube doesn't really let you get back to all past like 5,000 of your videos, which, like, I'm up to like 8,000. Maybe they fix that at some point, but it's real hard. It's really hard to get a full listing and go through them. But yeah, the automation software, through a lot of trial and error and a lot of programming, works. Although now I need to go back and remove a plugin that I was using, because the plugin only lets you do like 25 actions before it gives you an error and crashes, because you don't have the pro license, which is ridiculous. See. Oh, well, yeah, I forgot these have menace, so I could have attacked with them. I could have attacked with them a while ago. What do we want to get rid of? Get rid of that. That's not a very powerful card. I can't even sacrifice these rats. Come to look at it, I'm playing this completely wrong. But yeah, I definitely need to get back to It'll Do 2 Plus, with whatever the name of it is. Okay. Play this. Play this. Start attacking with all of these, I guess. I'm just so short on mana. I don't know if that's a consistent issue with this or not. Now, we don't have a ton of new video game news that came out finally, but we are in this weird position, certainly, where games are starting to come out, but games are also getting delayed, but games are also they're also running into competition between announcements and games that are coming out. I have still not heard anything from the summer sale, and I think, frankly, I'm just gonna have to skip purchasing anything else until the summer sale happens. It's a little too frivolous to spend $30 on the Humble Bundle. I wish there was a cheaper tier there for the 4 or 5 games that I know I want versus a bunch of games that I'd have to go and do research on to see if I own them or not. There's a interesting offer for people who own The Witcher 3 that you can now get The Witcher 3 through Good Old Games if you own it on some other service, which is nice, but I honestly would prefer it the other way around, because I got The Witcher 3 with a graphics card, and so they gave me a Good Old Games code, and so now that's the only game I have on Good Old Games. And the truth of the matter is, that's where that really falls apart, is you aren't really going to be able to... Why can I not block this guy? I can block that guy, and that's it. You really aren't going to be able to ever replace your collection of games on Good Old Games. There's just so many games that aren't listed on that service. There are a few that are only on Good Old Games, but not enough. Not enough to justify it. I believe Naughty Dog retweeted a CNN article here, and it's more interesting to see that CNN, at least on their website, which is, I think, a lot broader in what they talk about than their TV channel, which seems to be politics 100% of the time. But again, I don't know why I would even for a second believe that any journalist or anybody writing for CNN's website or CNN's TV would know anything about video games. If anything, they're going to just constantly try to push that anti-video game narrative so that they can try and push more people to watch more cable news, because that's where their money is made. Whereas CBS Interactive owns Giant Bomb, but I don't think there was ever really a focus to make Giant Bomb push a TV narrative. Like, if anything, it seems like they make fun of, like, CBS All Access, that they don't really have any other motivation there. Although, if you were to make the argument that there was some slight narrative that was trying to be pushed by Giant Bomb to make people hate video games, you'd have to really show me a lot of examples of it, because there definitely have been some Giant Bomb employees that I think really didn't care about video games and maybe downright kind of hated a lot of them. But I don't know if I could go as far as to say that they completely hated games more than they hated some types of games. There's nothing here but swamps. Yeah, I'm probably gonna lose. The actual article from CNN here is: a blind video game got emotional after seeing The Last of Us Part 2's extensive accessibility option for players with disabilities. This has definitely been a narrative that has been pushed over and over again by The Last of Us 2 publisher creators, is that it has extensive accessibility options, which it is kind of almost this at least 2-part, if not more part, weird asinine groupthink that the creators of Last of Us 2 seem to have been focused on. I sort of question if The Last of Us 2 wasn't delayed because they absolutely wanted it out for Pride Month. just again to be virtue signaling, and they definitely are talking about the accessibility, and they definitely don't want people to actually talk about the game because the game actually sucks from what I'm hearing. Nobody likes the story. None of the woke people like the story. None of the non-woke people, for lack of a better term, like the story. Seems like they make Ellie a very unlikable character, which is a complete 180 from what I believe the story was in the first game, where you really liked Ellie. And they probably set themselves up a little bit for failure by making a character that was really liked and then trying to make them the hero of a dark, gritty, violent game. Violence, as it's been depicted, seems to be really high and aggressive in The Last of Us 2. And we had seen hints of that years ago when they were showing the first little teases of it, that there was just really a large amount of violence on there. So this really seems like a director, somebody who was in control of the narrative, either a director or the writer, really went off the rails and didn't understand what was fun and entertaining about the first game, and couldn't copy that or continue that in the sequel. And in a funny way, because this is a PlayStation exclusive, it's going to hurt PlayStation more than anybody else other than Naughty Dog. So yeah, it doesn't feel like it's a good game after all that hype. It probably had a lot of command, a lot of demand put on it. Yeah. To be super successful. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the PlayStation censorship stuff came into play, and just the new California people being in charge of Sony Interactive Entertainment came into play. But also, I think it is just a bunch of SJWs have finally run off the rails. And I don't know if there's much else that you can even say there. I do know that another game that is coming to the PlayStation 4 is yet again going to be censored. We've not had a lot of games coming out, so that story has mostly died out. The other thing, as far as The Last of Us, since everybody's talking about it, is it seems like a lot of people just aren't in the mood to play it because it's a super violent game that I think probably somehow feels a lot like it's an allegory to a lot of things that are happening right now between the pandemic and just political unrest and all. And it's just not... A lot of games may suffer from that, but I think Last of Us is going to be the first and worst sufferer from that in particular. Whereas even the Dollar Flu pandemic in that other game that I can't even remember the name of was... Seriously? Take forever. Jeez. That took forever. I was like, wait a minute, why aren't those guys dead? Let's see. Moving on, there was an EA presentation and not a lot was said, and it was really short by how long I thought it was going to be. And they teased some games, and I think that's pretty much all I can really say is choose any number. Wow, so I could do all three of the things? Interesting. So yeah, there was this EA presentation. Wasn't even very focused around sports. The Skate franchise was, quote, willed into existence again. Which, again, I don't know if this was much of a surprise announcement since it had already been told. We'll probably have some other announcements from the EA presentation, but only because I was programming and wasting and had nothing better to do. Or to listen to. Did I end up watching people talk over the EA presentation two different times, two different groups of people, and even those two different groups of video game journalists really had nothing to say. Because there's just not a lot of announcements out of that matter, and not a lot of announcements out of it that are going to play a role anytime soon. So this one, yeah, I might be able to win next turn just by playing this. Okay. This game is taking forever to spawn. Each player puts the top of their library into the graveyard. Nope, let's go ahead and attack. And then I guess I have to activate this ability because I can't cast this one. I guess I can activate this ability again, since why not? Whenever a creature dies or a creature card is put into the graveyard anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature leaves your graveyard. Interesting. So if I sacrifice these three guys, actually I wouldn't even activate that ability. Game Researcher has an article. Tonic Games Group is a new parent company of UK developer Mediatonic. So we are still continuing to see a decent number of corporate reshuffles happening that are merging things. Yeah. in good times or bad times, that companies seem to constantly get bigger, and that is mostly due to capitalism leading towards cronyism, leading towards a lack of regulation. Whereas, ideally, I would like to see small companies that do one thing and can be well known for doing that one thing and only that one thing. Well, let's see. Play this, because that won't have any problem. And then if I was to just, you know, tap this, and then attack, I win. You can't block 3 things with 2 things. But yeah, Amazon.com is a great example of that. Had Amazon.com been limited and regulated to only selling books online instead of being allowed to become the de facto place where everybody buys everything, while not having to really hold anywhere as much inventory as anybody else who owns a regular store, or actually even be the person who's actually doing the business in a lot of cases. But on the other hand, that many people would argue that's just the price of business and evolution. But it's a dangerous price, certainly. You're putting all your chicken eggs in one basket with the chickens and the hens and the foxes and the jackhammers and the bombs. You're just putting everything in one basket, in other words, and those eggs potentially at some point might break if for some reason the supply lines of resources were completely dependent on Amazon.com, and Amazon.com decided they didn't want to sell to somebody, then you could be in trouble. Certainly. Imagine if there were no other stores and you were blacklisted from shopping at Amazon.com. That's been the Walmart argument always, is that if you wanted to shop at a local grocery store, you can't, because Walmart has effectively, whether they intentionally did it, they did, but or not, they've effectively put out all local grocery store businesses out of business. It is a great example of how capitalism really doesn't work. It may lower prices temporarily, but at a huge risk of lowering product availability and variety. Moving on to video game news, a California court has dismissed the Magic Leap lawsuit against its competitor Unreal, which I don't even know when this happened. Magic Leap had accused Unreal, which was founded by its former employee Cheesy, of stealing its technology to quickly create a competing product in the form of the Unreal Light augmented reality glasses. Well, apparently that got tossed out, and this seems to be a recurring theme where people are claiming that they own like a lot, if not all, of the technology around augmented reality, virtual reality headsets, and they are trying to sue people out of existence. Well, actually, back to the economics I was just talking about. Yeah, the reason why we don't have cheap and a cheap variety of multitude of competing virtual reality headsets is because only the big companies have so far been allowed to sell anything and develop anything, because they're all the small companies are potentially getting sued by the big companies. Even the medium companies are getting sued. Like HTC Vive and Oculus were suing each other. There is this inherent overvaluation that seems to happen of new technology, small, simplistic ideas in general, that copyright it shouldn't allow to happen. That there just shouldn't really be a copyright on some of these simplistic ideas. Honestly, there shouldn't be a copyright on anything shorter than 100 pages. I would, if I was just to pick a random number, and even then, you could probably have a copyright lawyer write up 100 pages to describe something incredibly basic. But yeah, copyright on 2-minute songs or parts of a 2-minute song. Songs are a little bit different, but 2 pages of a book shouldn't be substantial. There is a picture is worth 1,000 words argument too. Copyright on individual pictures probably should be extremely limited, considering how the meme culture and all of that really goes these days. But the general concepts in particular aren't supposed to be copyrightable, and yet they're definitely trying to copyright the idea of virtual reality and augmented reality in a way that would stop competition. Hey, let's get rid of that. I hate that card. The thing I guess I would say is it probably should be an evaluation of the sectors and the amount of competition that exists. Like, where somebody who's first to market has less protection of copyright than someone who is the 100th to a market. Or maybe it should be a percentage thing, that whoever is first to design something only gets 50% royalty payback if somebody's found copyright infringing, where the second person to market gets 60% and the third person gets 70%, and the fifth to market, like so. That would be a weird system, certainly, but some kind of sliding scale like that to encourage people to copy things, or at least be less afraid of copying things. Because at the end of the day, copying things is the whole point of like open source shared code concepts, and it just smacks in the face of, no, you should keep everything copyrighted and you should charge everybody and license everything from everybody. Yeah. Well, what they really probably should do is, instead of having people copyright something and sue people for violating the copyright, it should just be anybody who is found violating your copyright has to pay a automatic license, and the amount of the license is determined by some government body or court. That there is some laws around that, like, I want to call it FRAND, I think was the phrase. That there are times where you do have to negotiate in a fair way and give a fair license to people, and a lot of companies don't want to do that either. in the end, the problem is always money. Like, the concept of money, the concept that you always need to get more money. You eliminate that as part of the problem, and then you've solved the whole thing. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. The Sims 4 launches on Steam today and EA Access this fall. That was also announced. Although a lot of these were out before the presentation happened, and we just kind of knew. Well, I knew at least. And that Steam Summer Festival event seems to be nothing. Let's see. I don't have a vampire creature card. Darn it. That was a waste. That was real dumb. TechRaptor has an article here. Apex Legends gets crossplay Steam and Switch releases. This is where we're starting to get to the point, though, of ridiculousness. As you can see here, you have PlayStation 4, which will at some point be replaced with PlayStation 5. Xbox One, which at some point will be replaced with Xbox Series X. Although, I don't know if the Xbox One Series X is... if it's called an Xbox One Series X or just an Xbox Series X. You have Origin, you have Steam, you have Switch. You could also throw in Stadia, Google, Good Old Games, Android, iOS operating systems. There's just a ton of platforms that we have at this point. Knights I control. How many knights could I control? Since we started late, I probably should try and burn through all the news fairly quickly today. Gamasutra has kind of a blog here examining the indies, ins and outs of today's gaming distribution platforms. And its first paragraph is called Epic Games, talking about the Epic Store. Which, in all fairness, yes, if you can get on the Epic Store, you probably will have less competition, but you also have less eyes. Next paragraph is switching it up. Getting on the Nintendo Switch. Yeah, again, less competition, probably less eyes. I suspect that there is actually a rather small number of people that have a day-to-day pattern of going towards the Switch eShop and looking at games. I don't think that the Nintendo Switch eShop pops up ads or anything on your main menu or anything like that. And I fairly often see games selling for just like 9 cents on the storefront of the Nintendo Switch eShop, and they are usually terrible games not worth owning. So I do have to fairly highly question if there is a real benefit to selling on the eShop, unless you're a big time game with some established recognizability. Like the Binding of Isaac on the Nintendo eShop makes sense, but some math game, some educational game, something low effort doesn't. There is a Nintendo made jump rope game that's free on the Switch eShop, where you it doesn't really do much, but you pretend like you're doing jump ropes, and you use the Joy-Cons to simulate that. It was made by people working from home from Nintendo, so It's no surprise that there isn't much there. Let's see. The next paragraph in this is hit driven. Yeah, if you're a hit, I imagine you can also sell it. I'm not actually reading this whole thing, this whole article, but I am surmising what it probably says in a way that would either fit my own narrative or just give me a jump off point to talk about things. So I'm looking at a story in an abstract haze, effectively, and interpreting the story to be a jumping off point to make up my own story, which is an interesting way to be creative. Certainly, I don't know if there's a more better way to describe that. I imagine, yeah, if you were to get drunk or smoke marijuana, if it's legal, and then go and watch a movie, you probably would get a whole different meaning, a slightly different meaning, at least from that movie, which then would be an interesting jump off point for your imagination, assuming you have one, to tell you a different story. There definitely have been times where I've been half asleep or dreaming or and thought of better stories than the movies or stories I've heard. And there definitely have been times where I've jumped ahead of a story and thought, well, if this went this way, this would be more interesting, or if it went this way, it would be more interesting. And more often than not, what happens is it doesn't do anything, and it's just a very standard, straightforward story. Like, a great example of that is the Broadway play Love Never Dies, which is a sequel to the Phantom of the Opera from Andrew Lloyd Webber, that came out like a long time after the Phantom of the Opera Broadway play. Phantom of the Opera itself is based on a book, but Andrew Lloyd Webber was like having cancer at the time and not really focused, and it's not anywhere as good as it's not anywhere as good as the Phantom of the Opera. But at the very end, there's a point where a character could have easily done an interesting twist and shown themselves to be evil. That evil would like run in the blood of this character, who I guess I have to say is the son of the Phantom of the Opera, and Phantom of the Opera is known for being just evil and killing people, hanging people in the first one, and so I thought at the end the son of the Phantom would push the Phantom of the Opera into the bay and drown him and kill him, and it just doesn't happen. So instead, Love Never Dies is this kind of ridiculous love story that is hard to appreciate, while there is this psycho sadistic story in the Phantom of the Opera between the two main characters, that the bad guy, the Phantom, feels like he's in love with the girl, and the girl sometimes feels like she's getting brainwashed and gaslit into believing that she's in love with the Phantom. That's not really the way you should probably take that story. And so when Love Never Dies comes out, it totally goes that direction, and it makes the hero male protagonist in the first story the bad guy, basically. And it just goes nowhere, and it's just not a good story, frankly. Also, I imagine Love Never Dies is a completely original story, whereas the previous Phantom of the Opera is based on a book by a different author, and that is probably something you could accuse Andrew Lloyd Webber of. It is that he is good when he's using someone else's base story, particularly if it's well known. Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat, for instance, is based on a biblical story, so that's fine. But if he tries to make his own story, you get things like Cats, which is just based on a loose book of poems, or you get things based on like just the songs in general, or you get, but then again, when you get back to Evita, that again based on a real story, real events. But yeah, that's a wandering thought to say, yeah, sometimes I hear better stories in my head than the stories being told, particularly in TV. You can never poop enough on the terrible quality of TV, in my opinion, these days. TV has just gotten horrible, and I would say it's been horrible since the writer's strike that canceled Heroes, and that was like 15 years ago, really. It has just been the worst pandering garbage. So terrible. Like, there's very rarely even a standout exception, and even if you do have a standout exception, like I didn't even watch Game of Thrones, but people were loving Game of Thrones. Even that people didn't like at the end. They didn't like that ending, and The Walking Dead is probably another good example of that. When TV can copy some book, some author's work, they can be at least better than what they normally are, enough that that people have something to say there. But then constantly, when they're copying someone's book, they don't copy finished books, they copy brand new stories, which is just ridiculous. Yeah. Anyways, moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Sable's Grimoire, Man and Elf, which looks like it's a visual novel of kind of a soft watercolor palette. It's $5.39, has an 18 plus patch, and it's English only, no audio. I don't see enough quality there to make me want to play that. Yeah, I don't know how you fix TV, really. I think what happens as far as TV is a lot of the cable channels are going to have to start shutting down. Like, particularly now that there aren't sports and ABC, Disney can't force people to buy ESPN and things like that. I think we will start to see channels just start to merge back together, shut down, and just try and have less things air. But that probably wouldn't ever happen, because it's probably very trivial to just have a channel air reruns of the same thing 24 hours. And then that is more likely what's going to happen, is that we'll just have a NCIS channel that just airs NCIS all day, and then at some point there will be an NCIS New York or an NCIS Hawaii, whatever the other NCIS. I know there's 3 or 4 of those. Yeah, 3 different channels that just go from episode 1 straight all the way through episode whatever. But at a certain point it might just become on-demand services too, because that's fairly ridiculous. But a large percentage of cable channels right now have very little primetime lineup or original content at all. Paramount Network is a great example of that, and they have Bar Rescue, and I love Bar Rescue for sure, but otherwise they just kind of have Yellowstone and that's it. And so that channel could die. CW is in a bad position because they continuously are running into issues with their Marvel universe not being successful, or some person who is an actor in the Marvel universe doing something offensive. So while the CW itself had a decent attempt at a lineup targeting its audience, which I don't think is much of an audience anyways, it's pretty dead. Sci-Fi Channel, same thing. It's just like Sci-Fi Channel's been dead for decades, as far as I'm concerned, ever since they changed their name. A lot of the prime over-the-air channels are just always going to constantly pander to new garbage shows. I couldn't even tell you when the last new interesting primetime over-the-air show aired. You would think it would be something like Picard, but Picard wasn't on CBS. It was on CBS All Access. And you'd think at this point they would give up on that and bring it back to TV instead of leaving it on All Access. Am I gonna win here? I don't think I'm gonna win, so I think I'm just wasting my time. Let's just concede and move forward. I should probably spend some time after we get the Core 2021 expansion. I should spend some time to rebuild this Brawl deck and try and do something different with it. Anyways, there's been a listing here for Asterix and Obelix XXL Rome Mastered. Now, what's interesting about this is I think this would be originally a Telltale game being remastered and re-released. I think it is being labeled here by the Australian government ratings board, classification board, by being made by Osome Studio and Microids. So this might be a different game, but yeah, I fairly feel like there was a game called Asterix and Obelix XXL. Let's look on Wikipedia. See, according to Wikipedia, it was a PlayStation 2 GameCube game that was not the game I was thinking of. I must be thinking of a different game, clearly. So this game is getting remastered based on a French comic book series, Asterix, which yeah, I don't know. There's really much to say there, but that is a game that apparently is getting a remaster, as everything is getting a remaster. I kind of feel like the games should, like, we should be seeing a ton of games getting remastered and a lot less games getting announced at the moment, because it really doesn't make a lot of sense for all these announcements to happen. Like, it is kind of ridiculous to even be hopeful that we'll have a good year in 2021, let alone a good year in okay. Let alone a good year in like 2020 as far as games being sold, or anything being sold. Yeah, I think people are going to be particularly conservative for a very long time, and we're probably going to embrace a lot of Depression era concepts. I don't know what could really stop that from occurring. I'm gonna go ahead and attack with this, because then if it wants to block, it has to at least kill one of these guys. I'm gonna use this time. Well, that forced him to use a card. That's still fine. We have a game on Steam here called Colony Siege, which looks like it is a tower defense game. Kinda looks like a real-time strategy game, but it's really a tower defense game. $19.99, English full audio allegedly, with a bunch of other languages. Yeah, I don't think I'm in the mood to once again put a tower defense game on the fall list. Yeah. See, we have a game on Steam here called The Britannic, Patroness of the Mediterranean, which looks like it is just a Titanic sailing simulator. This looks a lot like the 999 game, which I assume the 999 game, nonary game, did use a lot of source material images, and there was probably tons of images of what the Titanic actually looked like. It. This is the sister ship. So yeah, this is a VR game with standard modes for $14.99, English full audio. $14.99 though kind of kills it. It is pretty, certainly, but I'm not sure that this isn't just an asset flip, frankly. And in a weird way, they wouldn't have been terrible to, if the creator of the nonary games did remaster their game and put it in a 3D environment like that. But I don't know if that really would have changed too much. If it still was just a mostly visual novel game with slightly better graphics, it really wouldn't have changed the story much. The main problem with 999 is that it goes on forever, and the puzzles are a little too simple. But yeah, clearly people seem to have some love with with the Titanic and the Britannic as it is, and there is this passion and fandom around it. These are all indestructible, so I'll just concede. But that being said, I don't particularly have a fandom or obsession with the Britannic or the Titanic or any ship. We're wasting a lot of time to get this one victory to get one pack of cards. I could probably, if I don't win this game, I'll jump in and I'll give myself more land and I'll get rid of some of the other cards I have. In fact, why don't we do a free mulligan so that we then can keep 7. Yeah, I've definitely not been taking an advantage of my opportunities there. Check Raptor has an article here. Best Friend Forever is delayed to August. A demo is now available. This is the dog dating simulator, for lack of a better term. If I recall correctly, I think that's what that was. Okay. I imagine we will see lots of delays. Here we have a game on Steam called Flying Red Barrel, The Diary of Little Aviator, which looks like it's a cartoony graphics shoot 'em up game. I don't know if a game like this works because it's a little too zoomed in. So instead of becoming a bullet hell game, it becomes the game where it probably plays like really slow and rather boring. They're saying it's a bullet hell game, but I don't see how that game plays like that at all. I will slightly applaud that it's somewhat of a wider screen game, but yeah, I would have to be a pretty big fan of beat 'em ups, I think, or shoot 'em up games before I could justify putting that on the fall list. And I'm just not that big of a fan of shoot 'em up games. See, this probably is pretty simple. So if I was going to play a shoot 'em up game, something like this might actually appeal, but there's kind of no point to covering something like this because this is not where shoot 'em up games are, generally speaking. I don't need to play Baby's first shoot 'em up. I need to play Ikaruga and show that they are incredibly difficult, and that's where the fandom of shoot 'em ups are. $8.99 discounted, English, Japanese, Chinese. There's a similar issue certainly with fighting games, that I could certainly go and play a really simplistic fighting game, but that would not be where the fighting game fans and community actually are, since they are all playing very complicated fighting games and difficult to play fighting games competitively. And while there might be an interesting middle ground in there to spotlight for a second, it doesn't really help anybody. Even if I was to play like Mortal Kombat or Killer Instinct, if I'm playing it like on a very easy setting and everybody else is playing it on very hard, that's different. That's an interesting animation. I haven't seen this before. Whenever you cast a creature spell. Let's see. Do I have any knights? One knight. Is there any chance to have other knights? on the field? Yeah. We'll just do no attacks. TechRaptor has an article here. Valve introduces a new experimental room view 3D feature to the Valve Index. See your own room virtually, I suppose. Okay. This is probably a very smart move. Either some kind of 3D wireframe depiction, something along that lines is probably a very smart move. Okay. Again though, because that is kind of a new feature for $600 headset, roughly speaking, it's not very relevant news to people like me who are not going to be willing to do anything there. He is wrecking me. So we have a whole bunch of cards that won't untap. Let's see. Discard a card. And do a little damage. Let's see. Komatsu has an article here. Robotics Note Elite Dash Double Pack has a character trailer. What is Robotic Notes? This game I saw teased, I remember this. 3D animation in what looks like a visual novel. Interesting. Yeah, it is a visual novel. Yeah, I kind of wonder if perhaps we will skip right over the live 2D animation and people will just finally figure out how to animate things cheaply and easily in 3D for visual novels instead of the 2D workflow. That probably would take a while, if I was to guess, because Japanese are not known for changing the way they do things quickly. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a long period of choosing not to change how things are done, even well past the point in which it should be changed. If you look at the anime series, the animation has still been mostly 2D. In the times that people try to make it 3D, it's often not even done particularly well. And there is definitely something that feels different in a 3D animation compared to a 2D animation. Just the softening of edges, a lack of polygons compared to what you can hand draw. Next we have a game on Steam called Clam Man 2 Open Mic, which I guess the real question would be to find out if Clam Man 1 was a success. And apparently it was not even made by the same person, or it's not on Steam. Alright, no, Clanman 1 made by a different group of people. It's rated positively. It came out in 2019. And it's a point-and-click adventure comedy for $9.99. Yeah, I'm gonna have to evaluate this, certainly. By my standards, it would go to the wish list, but I'm gonna have to really think about this, because this does look fairly rough, even for a kind of low-effort point-and-click adventure. Let's see if we can block that. Nope. Yeah, if I had something like Bowl of Citadel, I could win here, but since I don't. Still can't play that. Interesting. He has 19 cards where I have 43, so perhaps I could make him run out of cards. This sleeve he's got is particularly distracting. If I could get this on the field, this would drastically increase my odds of winning. But I would need one more land. So we block this. That does 2, 4, 6. Yeah, Bowl of Citadel, not gonna work. Yeah, I'm just too short on things, and now he has like 14 cards. I don't know how he gained cards, but he did somehow. Bowl Citadel's probably a terrible brawl card. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, the Academy Review, which I think this is kind of a Harry Potter clone. They're calling it a puzzle game. Maybe it's a Harry Potter clone without any of the Harry Potter, so then it's really just a they're saying it's more like a Professor Layton puzzle game. Interesting. So it's just puzzles, not magic. Okay. Unfortunately, they gave it a 2.5. The Academy is a mess of a game which, with terrible puzzles, characters, and plots, don't bother. Its only pro is its inoffensive music. Its cons are atrociously bad puzzle design, bland characters and tedious plot, bizarre amateurish character animation, shoddy user interface and control design, spelling and grammatical mistakes throughout. So either this person who is reviewing this game really hates it for legitimate reasons, or they've got a bone to pick. Let's see. Our commander. We need more cheap. We need more cheap cards is what we need. That's probably not a bad idea. And that's probably not a bad idea. Making a full zombie card deck is probably not a bad idea either, eh? Actually, let's get rid of this figure in favor of this. And see, it's funny is I can play Duress from different versions, different expansions. Interesting. So I guess this Commander is the only time, or Brawl is the only time that having a variety of cards is useful. Yeah, I don't want to do too much of a change here though, so I've got 5 new cards. Let's go through here and get rid of the 5 least likely to be useful cards. Taste of Death, probably not going to work in a Brawl. Let's see. Get rid of that. This one might not be really worth having. This one's not worth having. That one's not worth having. There we go. We'll go ahead and apply styles. Why not? So, yeah, that's a shame. It's not super surprising that the Academy would not be well received. It does kind of look like a cell phone game that is trying to sell itself towards kids. It does kind of also go to show that there's just this level of lack of quality towards kids-focused, kids-marketed games. Right, let's reveal the hand immediately and we'll know exactly what they're trying to do. They have two blues, 3 blues. This is a 1/1. This one has flash and flying. Let's get rid of that. So, yeah. That's a bit of a disappointment. See, do I want to discard another card at the moment? No, not at the moment. We should just keep an eye on what he does, because now he has like very little. Play this. Do I want to play this? Yeah, he's trying hard to ensure this card does not blast zone. Destroy each non-line permanent with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters. Interesting. So I could then kill this if necessary. I don't even know why I have this card in the deck. Put this on the field. Put that on the field. Go ahead and put that on the field. Apparently surveil means go to the graveyard. Which I guess I'll do that. I guess scry is the more useful one. Next we have a game on Steam called Bunny Memory, which there's several bunny related games that are just like generic games that are turned into 3D games. Yeah, Bunny Mahjong, Bunny Parking, Bunny Reversey, Bunny Minesweeper is the one I recognize. So this developer still making these weird 3D games, almost as if they're trying to train themselves into how to make an actual 3D game, that they leapt before they learned to walk effectively, and now they're working backwards in a way, because it would have been so much easier for a developer like that to simply have a flat 2D Minesweeper game or a flat 2D Reversey game. There's nothing you're adding to the gameplay by having it be a 3D experience, other than perhaps a misguided attempt at It could be a misguided attempt, I imagine, to... Oh man. Why does this cost? It doesn't cost more, it's just I don't have the thing it needs. Alright, well. Next. Let's see. Guess I have to do no attack. It would probably be nice if there was a different animation other than just the swoop to show that it wasn't doing damage, but it was doing something different. It was activating an ability on a character. Alright. Let's do this. Can't do anything yet. What does this one do? $41 to 44 cards. I have definitely made this Brawl deck a lot more focused around a deck destruction, the hand destruction concept. I don't know how long that will last, however. Next we have a game on Steam called Nordic Warriors, which looks like it is a Nordic themed real-time strategy game. There might be something there, and that is a concept that I haven't seen done a lot of. $16.99, English full audio, third-party EULA. Yeah, that I think is a unique enough idea to deserve some following. Let's see. Next we have Goosebumps Dead of Night on Steam. This game was quickly announced and then quickly released, so I am not suspecting that it will be a great game. I bet we find it to be pretty mediocre, but I'll put it on the follow list. At $39.99 though, that is a very high price, and it is oddly a tie-in to a movie that doesn't seem to be coming out. So it feels like it's a tie-in to the previous Goosebumps movie, the second one, with Jack Black in it. I don't know if there were any before the first one with Jack Black. It does says English full audio. It does feel like this was probably just a delayed release. There was supposed to be a tie-in for that movie. And unless there's some direct to Netflix, direct to DVD, Goosebumps third movie in the series, I doubt that there's going to be another movie, but it's questionable whether there'll ever be any more movies for anything at this moment. In a weird way, even though I've heard that Disney movie Artemis Fowl was terrible, the general concept from the books from which it was taken doesn't sound terrible if you were to try to put that in the video game sense. it sounds very much like a video game concept. A master thief, bad guy, child character, anti-hero, kind of like Indiana Jones, would set you up nicely to play as Artemis Fowl and run around and steal things. Not unlike Sly Cooper. I wonder if you just have to always build up. Like, I wonder if that's the case. If you just always have to have things that make zombies, things that summon tokens. Okay. So now I can destroy something that costs 3 mana. I don't know if that helps me much. Gamatsu has an article, Drake Hollow Open Beta Weekend set for June 19th to the 22nd. Drake Hollow being a game like so many that was teased and then I immediately forgot about it. Here we have the demo for the Academy, called the Academy First Riddle, or it's labeled the Academy First Riddle at the top, and then it's just labeled the Academy in general. It doesn't look like a terrible idea. Basically Hogwarts if you were not magic, with secrets and mysteries. I definitely do remember when I was a kid wandering around a few big buildings. And expecting to find a lot more secret passages and such. Oddly, this game only has 2 reviews right now, and they're both pre-release reviews, so they might just be shills. But I'm going to put this on the follow list, and I'm going to see if maybe that TechRaptor article just went off the rails. I have been noticing that TechRaptor has been hiring some new authors, and I'm not sure I fully think that they have the same editorial narrative that the rest of the website has, which is a weird thing to say, and really the onus is on me to know who's writing the author, but they don't even bother to put the author's name in the byline at the top, so it is remarkably obvious that it's difficult. Let's see if we can find things that are just zombies. Discard a card to create a zombie. That should be one. That should be one. That should be one. Yeah, there's a There's a problem here, certainly, with trying to create a zombie deck, and it's going to be expensive. Okay. Let's get rid of Blast Zone and go up with a regular swamp. And get rid of that. And get rid of that. And does this enter tapped? No, so we'll hold on to that. We'll get rid of that one. Get rid of that one. Let's get rid of that one. Let's get rid of that one. Cycling wouldn't be bad. Do I have something else that I could make a commander? Because that's probably a thought. Certainly is to get rid of some of these commander cards. What would my options be as far as commander cards? So, let's see. I guess I drag it here up to that. Okay. Let's get rid of that too. Get rid of that. Let's go over here and try some cycling. Add that. Add that. Add that. And add that. There we go. I'm putting in a lot of time and a lot of work. It's been an hour and 40 minutes to get 2 victories in this brawl. Just to get a card. This inherently, once again, points out the problem with Magic the Gathering Arena. They need to just say, let me forget it. Just give me the card. Let me just admit I'm a loser and move forward with my life instead of having to play over and over again. And see, now this Godzilla card is kind of the exact opposite of what I would want to do. That's not a bad commander. Cheap. All I need to do is have more enchantment cards now. Which, I don't know if I have any enchantment cards. Two damage to target creature, you gain 2 life. This is just cycling. Next, we have a game on Steam called My Beautiful Paper Smile, which this is a clearly horror point-and-click adventure game. Yep. I noticed that Jesse Cox and Dodger were playing this game, and they haven't put anything on YouTube in a very long time, so I guess their little podcast with Total Biscuit's spouse at this point has just completely been abandoned and shut down. They were being extremely inconsistent about it for the past year. This was $13.49 English only. A horror game like this really will come down to the reviews a lot more than even most things. Let's see. Yep. Yeah, I imagine that podcast is just dead. It was, in all fairness, trying to continue a podcast after someone dies of cancer and you're the spouse of that person who died of cancer and you have cancer too, and you're in Korea, so your internet's never going to be super predictable. It was asking a lot, to say the least. See, should I go ahead and attack? I think we probably should. If I win here, this is going to be just by the seat of my pants. Tech Repto has an article here. Detroit Community Play extension is out now. Which, does this work through Twitch? Yeah. Where Twitch can play Detroit. Not that people on Twitch or anywhere really are chomping at the bit to play Detroit. Yeah, saw that coming. Yeah, I don't know if I'm ever gonna get 10 victories, because here's the thing. Even if I just woke up, since I woke up so late in the evening, I really don't have time until it runs into midnight and it rolls over to the next day. If anything, I should have been playing off screen before the stream happened. But if I was playing off screen before the stream happened, then I could have just as easily started streaming. The 10 daily wins becomes such a problem. Gamma Sutra has an article, Minecraft, King's Quest, and more join the World Video Game Hall of Fame. Is that the new King's Quest or the old King's Quest? See, Bejeweled, Centipede, King's Quest, which I guess is the original King's Quest game, or the entire series, and Minecraft, all join the Hall of Fame. The thing about this Hall of Fame, even last year, there was a fairly obvious issue in how they were picking games, in which they were very random. They were picking new games and old games, and I guess at some point, if they're picking enough games each year, they might catch up, but 3 games early is not going to do it. So yeah, it's questionable to say the least as far as where, at what point would I feel like the World Video Game Hall of Fame justifies its own name by having enough people nominated and has caught up and highlighted enough games in general. Moving on, TechRaptor still has their cross promotion with Nutaku. So SF Girls, a Nutaku tower defense game, is now out. I will say, yeah, seems like all the Nutaku games at best are just moderately acceptable games. At worst, often bad games. So there's definitely a point where the games are too simplistic. They don't have enough adult content in it. They don't have enough general gaming content in them. They seem to all be heavily focused on trying to get you to buy microtransactions. But oddly, particularly if you're playing one of their cell phone games, it's not like there's a lot of competition there. And even if you're playing a PC game on your PC, adult games are not really as competitive as they should be. See. If I could get that, but if I had an enchantment in my graveyard and I created a 2/2 black zombie token, this would amass each time and power up those guys. Next we have a game on Steam called Moltron Simulator 2021. That seems to be a long German name. By the looks of it though, it looks like it's a pretty low effort like MS Paint looking game. English is not supported. It's early access for $2.39, German only. Now you don't see a ton of German only games. Yeah, it was a probably decent 50-50 choice. Okay. Now what do we want to do? This one doesn't have reach. This one doesn't have reach, so we can just attack with that one too. We lost one zombie, but we're back to another zombie. See, well, we can play that, and I wanted this on the field in the last turn, but at what point does one give up on these brawls? Like, at what point does one just give up? I'm gonna go for enchantments and filter. Whenever you pay life, you may put that many blood counters on the field. That's not a bad one. That's probably not bad. Trying to go through all of these. Put that in their hand. I'm hoping these enchantment creatures count as enchantments. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't. Enemy of Enlightenment gets -1 for each card in the opponent's hand. Okay. So we have like 14 cards now. Let's think about this. Let's get rid of that. And keep that high. And let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that since that really doesn't do anything. It's probably a little too expensive. That one. Let's get rid of Witch's Oven. Let's get rid of Blight Beetle. Let's get rid of that one. Let's get rid of that one. Three more cards. One more card. There we go. Not a lot to say in that whole process. That there really is a pain, certainly. It's a pain that they have to just jump back and continuously try and build a deck of some sort that even has a slight chance of winning. And I didn't change the ratio of swamps, so I should have had enough, but I'm not gonna mulligan again because I can play along with this. Moving on, TechRep has an article. Paradise Lost creates a grim alternate reality, which looks like it's a walking simulator type game that is coming out. A narrative Gone Home style game. I'm hoping. Are we going to get lucky here and just get a quick disconnect? I would be more than happy to take that quick disconnect, and we can try this Brawl deck next time we need to do a Friday Night Magic thing. Yeah, I guess the Friday Night Magic issue really just pushed them over the edge as far as having so much stuff happening on a weekly basis. TechRep has an article here, Red/Die and Repeat in 30XX, which looks like a Mega Man clone. And yeah, it doesn't look bad. So that's coming out also. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Core Awaken, Jillian and Lil Snow. This is tag sexual content. This looks to me like it's, well, what is it? Some kind of platforming low effort game by the looks of it. Yeah, it doesn't look quality enough. I like the character designs, but then the character designs are clearly being shown here, and these may just be asset flipped. These may not have been made by the creators at all. It's $12.59. It's English, Japanese, and Chinese. Let's see what the adult content warning is. Well, it doesn't say anything like that. So yeah, it does seem like it is kind of an example of just a low effort game trying to sell itself on sex again, unfortunately. But yeah, I guess inherently that is the problem with a lot of these anime styled games, is that any of the anime characters can have a certain appeal if you're into anime characters, and they oppositely have no appeal if you're absolutely not into that animation style. But then the characters, the writing and the personalities behind them are often nothing, and the game behind them, if they're in a game, is often nothing. Next, we have a game on Steam called 3D Sin PC, which looks like a old game. It really looks like an old game that seems to jump between 3D and a parallax 3D and 2D. It seems like you have this punching bag mechanic that feels like you're playing like a Who Framed Roger Rabbit character, which is an interesting idea. None of the Who Framed Roger Rabbit games that came out for like Game Boy were ever any good, unfortunately, but there is something to be said about that existing. This is the one we need to play first. And then attack while we can. I'm thinking this guy won't play at all, which might be useful. This one could destroy this one, and then I could play this. So we need to play in specific order here if this is really going to work. And I kind of wish he would put a stronger character on the field. I'm not sure that a Who Framed Roger Rabbit video game would ever have worked, though, because there's a story in the movie, and there's kind of a absolute lack of story that you could even tell now, unless you were just going to do a full remake of the entirety of the movie in a like VR capable game. And I don't know if we're at that point where we're willing to just walk through the motions of an interactive retelling or remastering of a movie. You wouldn't be able to get like Bob Hoskins or anybody in the because Bob Hoskins is dead to voice it, so I don't want a continuation of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, really. Even when we've seen the Rick and Morty VR games, they just really don't work anywhere as well as it should. Speaking of story, TechRaptor has an article. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales will tell an origin story. It's been a very hard beginning with the announcement of this game to figure out that it's a side game using the old engine, telling the origin story of Miles Morales. It is not the direct sequel to the previous Spider-Man game. Like, it's been more difficult than it should have been to get to that level. Alright, so we need to put this here. And then attack. And then we do this. And that creates another zombie. And next turn we can either play this, or we can play this if we get another swamp. What? Token creature zombie. Token creature zombie army. Ah, this doesn't even work the way... This doesn't even work the way I thought it did. Does it? A mass goes to army, so I would need something else besides a zombie army to spawn, not zombies. So my fundamental understanding of what a mass does has been wrong. Let's see. Libretto has a blog about the parallel LLEI RDP updates, which is the new Nintendo 64 parallel core emulator. Apparently crop overscan has been added, and that seems to be about it. They are certainly excited about it, regardless of how useful it really is or not as a product. I'm gonna go ahead and hit this. Finally. Even though I totally built the wrong deck, I built something enough of a brawl deck to get enough of an advantage to have people give up on me. And we get a midnight clock. Which, I mean, these cards are worth it. Like, I didn't have any of these cards before. But that is a hassle, to say the least. So now we just need to play some red cards and try and get some victories, which we probably won't do with our red test deck. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article. This War of Mine is now recommended reading for Polish high school students. Which is interesting that a video game would be labeled as recommended reading, but I get the general idea of what they're saying. That being said, I don't know if there's any assistance or helpfulness as far as allowing people to own this War of Mine, which I don't think has been a particularly free or easy game to get your hands on. Looking at this next game to see if all the screenshots are YouTube family friendly, and I think they mostly are. Next, we have a game on Steam called Holy Sisters 3D, which is just anime nuns in hell with guns. Again, tagged with sexual content, $1.19, low effort trash. But we're starting to see that the low effort trash is once again being allowed, which is a statement on if Steam is curating or censoring adult games, they are being very haphazard at it, because we still get those quite often. 3 damage and scry. Or do this. This and this. And then this. And then this. TechRaptor has an article here. CDPR, CD Projekt Red, investor call shines light on the Cyberpunk 2077 delay. I guess I buried the lead here. It is once again delayed. Like, no surprise though. Like, it was fairly obvious to me, at least, that it was going to be delayed. Like, there's really no reason to have thought that it wasn't. This will do 4 damage, which... just kill that and get it out of the way. They've overhyped and announced the game too early. They weren't anywhere close to being done. I don't think they're really anywhere close to being done. And they've played this game where they've tried to make it seem like they were a lot closer than they were, for really no benefit to anybody. And so now reality is going to have to come back in and they're going to have to admit that, yeah, they're not anywhere close. They should have been saying they weren't anywhere close for years. And that they wouldn't be anywhere close for years. Don't need that. And we can decide what we need here. TechRaptor has an article here. EA removes over 3,500 player-generated assets from their games. They've been removed because they were, quote, inappropriate or hurtful names and language. So, yeah, it seems like it's just, you know, general concept. I don't know what specific games in particular they're mentioning, or it doesn't seem like they really are mentioning any specific games. Oh man, I could have tapped that up quite a bit. 3,500 pieces of content is not even a lot, even amongst EA's collection, because so there really is not a story there, other than EA is trying to get some good press. In a weird way, I think that may have been the intent of the entirety of that entire presentation, was that to simply have it be a good bit of news for EA. Which, I don't know if Bobby Kotick is the EA guy or if he's an Activision Blizzard guy. Did hear an interesting claim, though, that Bobby Kotick's company has effectively done something close to insider trading by announcing share buybacks and then selling their own personal shares and then not actually buying back any shares. But I wouldn't be surprised if that is fairly commonly done by a bunch of companies, because I bet there's just no regulation whatsoever to manipulate your own stock price. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Humankind is a Forex Strategy for the Masses. It's a slightly interesting idea, but at a certain point, Forex strategy is probably not too different from just what I would call a real-time strategy or resource management strategy game. So yeah, Humankind doesn't seem like it's particularly got an exciting sales pitch at the moment. And selling yourself as a Forex strategy game, to me, is definitely a pretty dull way to advertise your game. Let's see. Ooh, no, we can't do that yet. Next, we have a game on Steam called Flying Hero VR. We have yet to have a good game where you feel like you're flying as a Superman style game in VR or outside of VR. So even though this game doesn't look particularly unique, there might be enough here to make it deserve to be on the follow list. Still would require VR, and it's $8.99, English full audio. There might not really be a lot to this, and seeing unicorns play soccer and a bunch of other weird stuff. Yeah, I don't know if there's really a game here or if this is just a asset flip experience. Some of those screenshots looked similar to Superman 64. That'd be an interesting idea to, hey, let's build Superman 64 and rebuild it in VR and see if we could make that game better. But nah, you couldn't improve that game much by remaking it. You could take some general concepts and do it way better. Okay. OpenCritic has an article here. TwitchCon San Diego is no longer happening this year. I think to the surprise of nobody. If anything, though, this may be the very last TwitchCon that ever happens. And I would say that Twitch in general is going to have a real deep thought. There needs to be new authority that runs Twitch. They need to clean house and put some new people in charge. Some people that aren't just trying to turn it into a OnlyFans clone. And it probably says a little bit about Jeff Bezos that they haven't done something like that yet. Two. Creature you control fights creature you don't. Alright, how about this? We do this. And then that should let me do this. And then that should let me do this. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article for PC. A diplomatic queen simulator and medieval fantasy romance visual novel, Palais de Rene, is now available for PC in the West. First launched in Japan in November 2006. Wow, 14 years ago. And yeah, that is an older art style game. I really love the idea that these games are getting ported to the West, finally. It's taken a really long time. And who knows, we may find out that there's entire other cultures and entire other collections of games out there that one day, 10 years from now, will finally come to the West, come to English. Being such an old game, though, you do have a couple of caveats to this, in the fact that they want $23.99 and it's only going to have Japanese full audio, and you wouldn't really just call it a visual novel game. On the other hand, you do have a nice caveat here that this is doing a mid 2006 animation style that wasn't even standard then, and you don't have the moe anime girls looking here. The only female character you have clearly is being depicted as rather tall, rather old, by modern moe animation styles. All the male characters are also being depicted differently than you normally would expect. So, yeah, that is something. Definitely something. Right. Can we finally play this? Next, we have a game on Steam called Premier Manager 09, which we have. There's been a few manager games I've probably skipped over. This one looks a little bit visually better. I still don't feel like playing management games, though, interest me or most people. $1.79, bunch of languages, and this is just a soccer/football management game. I probably should have let this guy die. Okay. Let's go ahead and cycle and see how this works. Number of lands I control? Fine, kill that. And then I guess we go ahead and play this and submit that. And this would let me create a creature with haste, but I don't want to do it this turn. Let's see. Neither one of these have flying. We don't have an artifact, so we'll do this instead. Exile target creature you control, then reveal card from the top of your library until reveal card with a higher converted cost. Or cast cards. That revealed 3 cards. Interesting. Now we have a 6/4 with first strike. That worked nicely. Gamma Sutra has a job listing for future play as a senior game animator in Helsinki, Finland. If anyone's interested and actually capable of doing that job. Here we have a game on Steam called Death Taxi 3000, which looks like a Windows 95 looking taxi cab simulator. Looks pretty terrible. For $9.89, that is way, way too expensive. Right. Let's go ahead and do this. So can I play this for 5/5 or this for 8/8? Trample haste. Alright. So now we're doing a full face race. If he can get a little bit more damage, they'll win. Theoretically, I'm just trying to play cards, but victories certainly would be appreciated. We have Need for Speed Payback on Steam, which is mixed. I think a lot of these EA games that are now on Steam are getting kind of rightfully so review bombed, in the sense that they all have EA Origin still integrated in them, or at least half of them do, and that they are working. EA is slowly but working on it, but clearly not working fast enough to most people's taste to remove the EA Origin integration, which they should have done before they announced all these games. Yeah, it really is kind of crazy. Dead Space 3, on the other hand, I'm going to put that directly on my wish list. Because, yeah, I played Dead Space 1, I played Dead Space 2. I know Dead Space 3 isn't great, but I would like to play it. A Way Out is a game that, if you can play it single player, no, you can't. You can't play it single player, so I just don't think I'll ever be able to play that. The Sims 4, I'll think about it. Like, I don't want to get deep into buying The Sims or playing The Sims, but there's something. Titanfall 2 is an interesting idea, but the question would be, is there even Titanfall 1 on Steam? Because I haven't played either one of those games. And then Payback, and then Battlefront 1 and 2. Can you play this single player? Yeah, there is some single player content. So I would be willing to play the single player content in Battlefront, but that's pretty much all I'd be willing to do in that. And come on, decide to load so we can play the next game. Battlefield Hardline. Another, just a ton of these are mixed bags, which really goes to show that, like, Mass Effect Andromeda, would I really want to play that? I don't think so. With the exception of Oh, my power just went out. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I guess stop streaming at this point since my power's out. I only have a few minutes of power on my battery backup, so I'm gonna end it here, and I'll have to do everything else off screen, and I'll talk about any news of importance